Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. I'm Zena Keita. We are going to be covering the Game 6s across the Western and Eastern Conference. Dave DuFour is actually at the LA Clippers Denver Nuggets game. We'll catch up with him in a second. But first, James Edwards III is here to break down how the Detroit Pistons ended their season. James, how are you?
I'm good. Running on fumes, but that's playoff basketball. I think we all are.
Including the New York Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. Yeah. They close out their series. I think, if you're looking at the two sides of the NBA sphere, New York, Detroit was pretty much the most interesting, most fun series overall. You think about a series that ended 4-2, decisive scores, 15-point differential between all 6 games. Yeah. Very tight series, actually second in NBA history to have 4 straight games decided by 3 points or fewer. The last time that happened was in 1984 in the Eastern Conference Finals with the Celtics and the 76ers. So New York, Detroit making some history. Of course, Detroit made their own history, getting to the playoffs, winning a playoff game, but they weren't able to win at home, James. I want to start first and foremost with the Knicks because we saw a Brunson clinic, a Brunson burner. As the Knicks would say, bad boy Brunson came out. I mean, 40 burger, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, but particularly once again, another unbelievable clutch performance. But I mean, he cooks up the craziest moves despite Sarah Thompson having unbelievable clamps on him in the fourth quarter. Like, are you surprised at all by what Brunson is capable of doing in the fourth quarter?
No, it's hard to describe, or I'm tired of describing it. Not hard to describe. I'm tired of describing it. This guy's been doing it all year. Listen, there's been numerous game winners, numerous go-ahead buckets. If somebody tells you they remember them all this season, they're lying. There was like a 5 or 6 game stretch at the end of February and early March where he had 4 or 5 game-winning or go-ahead buckets that really, in the end, were beneficial to the Knicks clinching home court advantage. This guy just has a poise about him. I asked him a few weeks ago if he remembers his first clutch moment, and he talked about in high school how he shot a shot in a high school game without confidence, and his dad sent him videos of NBA players shooting shots, make or miss, with confidence in the clutch time. And a week later, he hit his first game winner in a high school game. This guy, there's something about him. The it factor is real. I believe in clutch genes. I do think that is a real gene, even though we can't define it. And I mean, I'm going to write about this for my story that you guys can read on Friday morning. But this bucket may have had big ramifications, right? Like, if they lose to the Pistons in 7 games, this franchise, there was going to be changes that came. I don't think that the owner would be okay with investing all their draft capital, their money, and they couldn't get out of the first round. And the Pistons have won in New York twice. So who's to say that if the Pistons take a game 7 to Madison Square Garden that they wouldn't win? Like, this shot had ramifications that could alter the franchise. That's how big this was, even though it's the first round. And even though people might say that they shouldn't have struggled with the Pistons, this was a big shot. This was a very big shot. Now the reward is going to play Boston.
There you go. And that's the thing, though. As you look ahead to the next series, I'm looking at the New York offense. Of course, Tobias Harris did his thing in shutting down a Karl Anthony Towns. Finished with 10 points. Yes, 15 rebounds, but definitely not the production that you'd expect out of the 2-man game between Jalen and Cat. A lot more so out of Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, who combined for 57 points. Like, they were the offense for the Knicks alongside Jalen. Now, is that sustainable going against Boston, especially considering the size that Boston has?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Knicks are going to have pockets in this series where they score because there's talent there, and they are very talented. And while Detroit does play very physical, and I'm sure Knicks fans are happy to get away from the physicality of the Pistons, Boston has at most times 5 guys on the floor that can defend and that can switch across the board. And the Knicks really struggle against teams that can guard one-on-one, that can get into their man, that that can guard. They've put Drew on Cat and have seen success baiting him into post-ups and not taking threes. Boston's just a different animal. The playoffs are it's less about the best team and the team with the fewest flaws. And Boston has the fewest flaws. And I think that's why New York squeezed out this series against the Pistons. They are the team with fewest flaws. And I think Boston just has too much switchability across the board. Then they can go score on you. I just think it's a bad matchup. And it's going to be, and now they went to 6 games with the Pistons, all dog fights. Like Boston's rested. The Knicks will get a couple days, but I think this is going to be a really tough hill to climb for the Knicks.
And they just also played the Thibodeau marathon, which is, Brunson ending with 42 minutes in that game, putting up 33 shots. Like the volume of energy expenditure that the New York Knicks just did against a Detroit Pistons defense is crazy. And then you have to go against the Boston Celtics. It's going to be crazy. I want to also ask you, though, about Detroit, because obviously you used to cover Detroit. So I'm sure there's a spot in your heart that you're proud of them. They got to the big stage. They felt the lights. And let's be real, in this game 6, it felt as if in the beginning of the game, the lights were a little too bright. They were putting some of the shades on. Cade Cunningham couldn't figure out his shot early in the game. He did end up with 9 points in that first quarter, but over the course of the game, particularly in the fourth quarter, that's where they needed him to step up and bring that offense that he's used to bringing. And he could not find a shot. I think he ended up just 4 points in the fourth quarter. But it makes you think about the future. With the way that Jalen Duren was playing this series, and you think about the backcourt. Of course, Tim Hardaway Jr. struggled in this game, only scoring 7 points. But imagine if that's Jaden Ivey out there again, right? Like there were so many aspects of it. What do you think when you're looking at the Detroit Pistons team and the way they played in this series? Like what was most exciting for you, having known the history of how they got to this place?
Yeah. I am very happy for a lot of the people over there, the people that I've covered, from Cade. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart didn't get to play, and I thought he deserved that moment to show what he can do with the bright lights. And Tobias I've known, and the peripheral people. So very happy for that team and that fan base. As you guys heard on TV, it's one of the most rabid in basketball. They love their team. And I think what's most important is they have an identity. And when shots don't fall, they can still stay in games. And defense travels, defense carries. And they did that without their 1A, 1B defender. Isaiah Stewart missed basically the whole series. And they were still able to defend at a very high level. So now you have Cade. He now has playoff experience under his belt. They have a lot of cap space coming up. They can now trade picks. Like, this is the worst the Pistons are going to be. This is the worst they're going to be.
That's
this is
scary.
The worst their roster is going to look.
I just got chills. That's kind of scary.
It's because they built a foundation on defense and hard-nosed play. And now you add the skill, you add the secondary creator, whether that's Ivy, whether that's somebody else next to Cade. Kat said it in the post game. This Detroit team is built for the playoffs and a bright future. It's hard to say otherwise, just based on what they did with even limited resources in this series.
I mean, they had a season. They end up 44 of 38. They won 14 games last season and found themselves going to 6. And you were there for all of that. And we used to commend you, like, how is James writing about this day in, day out? And of course, you find a way to still celebrate them, right, in this series. And I'm wondering, lessons learned, of course, going into the next year of the playoff stage, because you literally saw Jalen Brunson show up in a superstar way. He showed up and was the best player in this game. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say the best player in the series, but definitely in this game. And in the wins that they had, he was the one that showed up and stepped up. So what are the lessons, particularly for maybe a Cade Cunningham, going to close out this year and get ready for the next opportunity to get on that stage?
Yeah, there's nothing that I can say that he doesn't know. There's a different level of physicality, right? He knows that now. He knows he needs to tighten up his handle. He was a little loosey-goosey with the ball in this series. But the fact that he was able to do some of the stuff he did in his first series without a true number 2 option just tells you how talented this guy is. And it's not like he was getting guarded by Joe Schmoes. It was OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges the whole time. He's going to tighten his handle. He knows that's important. He knows what the physicality it takes, the attention to detail late in games. This is a great learning experience for him. And that dude, I guess people were surprised that he became this. It was there last year. Cade was really good last year too. He's as talented as they come. And now just the experience. Like we go to college, right? We have to get this degree to get jobs. But what really prepares us for the jobs is the experience, the internship you have, the opportunity somebody gave you, the on-hand, on-site opportunities. And you got it. And this young team got it. They know what it tastes like. And the way that they lost, I'm sure they walk away from this thinking they lost this series, not that the Knicks won this. I could see them thinking that. And so now they're going to come back hungry. They're going to come back hungry. And that's not bad for a team that plays like a pit bull with rabies anyway.
James, you always come with the wisdom. I appreciate that. There you go.
I don't even know
Guys,
what I just said.
I love it. You were cooking. Don't you worry. Go read James over at The Athletic. Got the story over the Knicks. Now going to the series with the Boston Celtics. When does that start, by the way? Do you know?
Monday in Boston.
Monday night. Whoo, Eastern Conference is heating up. Appreciate you, James. Now go to bed. I know it's been a long one. Now, if New York and Detroit were the most interesting series in the East, Dave DuFour was actually at the most interesting series of the West, and really the entire NBA. Denver Nuggets and LA Clippers have been battling, and it's not finished yet, y'all. There's still a Game 7 as the Clippers forced that, beating the Nuggets in Game 6, 111-105. Dave, you were there. You were there for the clinic that Norman Powell, Kawhi Leonard, and particularly James Harden put on Denver. From the top of this game, would you have expected the way that James Harden played, especially considering the dud that he laid in Game 5?
I mean, I would make an argument that it's been a dud since about halftime of Game 3, right? Like he had that amazing first half, put up 20 points in the first half of Game 3. And then back-to-back games, it was 6 points and 11 points in the last 2 games. This is the game that they needed from James Harden 2 games ago, right? If they get this in Game 4, they win that game. Obviously, if they get it in Game 5, it's a little bit closer. But this is the sort of night that they need from Harden to win. Like we saw this in Game 1 where, obviously they lost a close game. But Harden really does stir the drink for them. Kawhi Leonard has been incredibly consistent. And him having 27 points and being able to turn it on in the fourth quarter to seal the game, it really stems from Harden picking up so much of the burden throughout the game. And so, you see him, Norm Powell has a huge game, as you mentioned. They get about 80 points out of their top 3 guys. You do that, you're setting yourself up to win. They also happen to get some, a couple of key threes from like Bogdanovich. Derek Jones Jr. hit some threes. They were able to buy some time out there without Zubac. I mean, basically everything kind of went right for the Clippers. And it still got close at the end because that's how close this series is.
Well, I'm happy you mentioned the entire board of all the people that contributed to this, but let's just be real. My French flag is waving right now. Nick Batum stepped all the way up. I mean, I think the stats say he had 2 blocks. I felt like he had like 30. He was everywhere, and he was hitting big shots as well. I mean, how key was Batum stepping up, in particularly this game in this series?
Massive. I mean, he gets that big block on Russell Westbrook going to the basket at the end. I mean, and Russ had an awful end to this game.
Yeah.
But Batum makes that big block, and that was what really stymied the Nuggets' comeback at the end. That was what shut them down momentum-wise. The Clippers get the ball back. They come back and score on the other end. And that was basically the end of that run. But Nico, it's nice. Like, he was throwing these little passes. I don't know if you guys caught this on the broadcast, but he's like these little sneak passes to the corner when he was on the break. He was, he obviously got the no-dip 3 down, which is great for the Clippers because they like to run the clock down. So he winds up with a lot of grenades. And this is just, again, this is what happens for the Clippers, especially at home. These role players step up. I also want to point out that Nico Batum guarded Nikola Jokic for like I don't know, 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, and somehow the Nuggets didn't go on a huge run in spite of Ivica Zubac being on the bench. I mean, it was a team effort, but Batum was just, I mean, you talk about a battle. I mean, you got a guy that you're giving up maybe like 40, 50 pounds to, and it's just give everything you got. And it's a testament to the way that this game was called. You know, I'm sure down the stretch, and we'll probably hear about this in postgame, but down the stretch, I'm sure that the Nuggets were a little frustrated because the Clippers were still allowed to be so physical, and they kept them off the line. But this was another example of that. Nico Batum doesn't stand a chance if they're giving us a regular season whistle. But in the playoffs, you know, these guys know we can give a little bit of extra juice. And, I mean, the defensive effort from Batum, you know, the block huge. Shots were great, but also just standing up Jokic in the post when they needed it, I thought that was massive for them.
I am so happy you brought that up. And I really love when I was listening to the broadcast, Stan Van Gundy was bringing this up about the fact that having a Batum in there obviously allows you to have some spacing and be able to add some shooting, but it's a more agile option on the pick and roll, particularly just to back down Jokic out of his position. And that's exactly what you saw him doing all night. Like, and I think it was really funny because his brother technically probably made that decision as the defensive coordinator for, you know, the Clippers. But I'm looking at the adjustment that the Clippers made on defense. I'm looking at the way that their big three showed up offensively. Everything was clicking, but particularly defensively, things were clicking at the end of that game. And I look at Denver, and you love this word, the grenades. How many times did we see Jamal Murray at the end of the shot clock throw a grenade over to Russell Westbrook, put Nikola Jokic in a position where he's trying to force something up? It looked as if the offense stalled for Denver, which is kind of crazy to say.
Well, I actually think that Jokic was a little bit too passive in this game. I mean, even down at the end of the game, you know, he passes up what felt like an open three to drive to the basket, trying to draw contact, maybe go for the N1. But, you know, they needed a three about a minute before that. And to pass up an open three, and it's almost like to try to prove a point because he wasn't getting the free throw call, you know, the free throws and the foul calls that he expected. But that was a little bit indicative of their whole night. I think Jamal Murray, he hit a couple of tough shots. I mean, this was not the explosion that, you know, we saw from Jamal Murray in Game 5, but he hit tough shots when they needed it. The issue is, you know, you just didn't have enough guys hitting shots. You had Russell Westbrook, you know, he blows a dunk, blows a big layup. You know, he misses a wide open three from the top of the key. You know, those are backbreakers for a team that is trying to fight back. But this is sort of where the Nuggets are. You know, they have, I guess, 4.5 guys that you really can count on for the full 48 minutes. And it depends on what you're getting out of Jamal Murray. I mean, looking ahead to Game 7, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, Zena, but, you know, Jamal Murray tends to step up in big moments, right? This was a moment I thought that Jamal really needed to back up, you know, from Game 5. He put up 43. I think he needed to have another huge night in this game and try to shut the Clippers down. Otherwise, you know, you need just more out of Jokic. He's got to be more aggressive. Yeah. And it's tough. It's tough to ask this guy that's done so much to get him here to continue to do it every single night. You know,
I know.
At some point, somebody else has to step up like we saw in Game 4 and 5.
I mean, yeah, Jokic ended up with 25 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, like 3 steals. I mean, like he had a crazy stat line.
Can you do more?
Can you do more? Right? It's like, it's a big burden to ask, but it's true when you're talking about the numbers from the Denver side of things, like 6 guys, maybe, you know, Watson added in there, but it is 6 guys. And one of the 6, Michael Porter Jr., I don't know if it was the shoulder that caught up to him or what, but he just was non-existent in this matchup. Only 5 points. He attempted 2 threes. Like, what did you see out of Michael Porter Jr. that was significantly different than what we've seen in the last 2 games?
Yeah, it's physical. This guy, I want to give him credit, right? Like, this guy's had a back surgery. He's obviously had an injury history that is a mile long. We know about the red flags for him coming out in the draft. He hasn't been healthy his entire career. And then he suffers this shoulder injury in this series. And I mean, he's been laboring the entire time he's been coming back. And I think it's one of those injuries where he's going to have it some nights and he's not some others. And it's got to be tough with the short turnaround. You know, they finish up the game the other night. They hop on a plane, fly out here, and now they got to turn around and go back to Denver to do this again Saturday night. And so, you know, you start to worry like, okay, well, if he looks like this in Game 6, it's only going to maybe be worse in Game 7. But that they closed with Russell Westbrook. And I think that that's pretty telling, right? Like he had a really great game 5, but you know how it is with Russ, right? Like you're going to get the good and you're going to get the bad, and you hope that they even out, right? And you hope they even out. And I think that if game 5 was that top of the roller coaster, right before you get to the huge drop, tonight was a huge drop, and they would have really probably rather had Michael Porter out there, especially just for his rebounding. I mean, just think about how many times the Clippers were able to tap the ball out, gang rebound on Jokic, even when they were playing small. So, I just can't imagine what it's like to be able to play in an NBA game with only one arm functioning. So, tip the cap to Michael Porter Jr. for what he's done so far. But it wasn't a great game for him.
All right, let's turn the attention to the Clippers because the onus is really on them. They are the ones trying to keep their season alive. And they did that tonight, last night, but being able to force a game 7. But now they are going into Denver trying to keep their season alive. And of course, you can get this offense out of Norman Powell and James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. But you mentioned it, Kawhi's consistency. That is the key thread that needs to be through the Clippers team, not just on defense, but particularly on offense.
Yeah.
Throughout this series, you've seen the Clippers pretty much be consistent with that aspect of their game, but their offense has been inconsistent. What is it that Denver is doing that allows James Harden to have a dud, then have 47 minutes played, 28 points, unbelievable game? How are they guarding these guys that it keeps being up and down with their performance?
If I could answer that question, if the Clippers could answer that question, I feel like we would probably know, we would know it out loud. With Harden, it does seem like you know which Harden you're going to get at the start of the game, right? Does he have the juice? I mean, he starts out this game, obviously, like attacking the basket. And against this Nuggets team, that is the recipe for success, especially for the Clippers. James Harden can get to the basket at will. He just needs to do it. He basically needs to put them in the blender, right? Like just over and over again, running those pick and rolls with Zoo. And then they surround him with shooters. And you look at the way that Kawhi actually plays off the ball from James Harden. It's not like, he's not out there making tons of cuts. He's not out there, but he's not out there standing around, right? He's actually clearing out space in the lane. They have a system. It's just so often that system seems to be, hey, beat your man. And, that's, I think, with Harden, if he doesn't have that first step that day, he's not beat this man. And with as physical as Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon have been, when they're out guarding him, it's not surprising to me, right? Like the referees allowing those guys to guard with their body, guard with their hands. Yeah. I think that has bothered James Harden a little bit, and which is funny to say because he is such a physical offensive player. He's constantly creating contact to create space. But I do think that the Nuggets defense has bothered him. And tonight, they just didn't have it. I mean, he was just blowing past them. It must have been nice to sleep in his own bed or something. You know what I mean? I'm going to figure out what it is. But, he just looked faster. He was getting into his actions faster. And then, down the stretch, when he's starting to milk clock, we saw him pick them apart. And the Clippers made him pay. They were getting open looks. As soon as they sent the second man over onto Harden, he let the ball go, and the ball found an open shooter. So I think if the Clippers stick to that, I mean, that game plan can work against the Nuggets. The Nuggets looked slow starting about, the middle of the third quarter. And this was one of the first times that the Clippers have been able to survive going small. So they even found a way to get Zubac off the court and get him some rest. I mean, you saw how fresh he looked. Came in with like 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That's a luxury for the Clippers. Usually they don't have the defense without him as the anchor. So, I think that the Clippers might have figured some stuff out rotation-wise in this game. I mean, it takes a while before you can figure those things out. But 6 games, I mean, it's better than, going home after game 6.
And I think that's the reason I asked that question is because it's one thing to be able to do this against an opponent that is scouting you and consistently adjusting to what you're doing, and not only in game, but obviously being able to watch film and then come back and attack it in a different way. But how does this translate to potentially the next round if you don't have your offense in a go-to type of plan? Like I know what Denver wants to do at the end of a game, how they want to get into a pick and roll situation with Jamal Murray or get the ball in Nikola Jokic's hand and figure it out from there. It feels a little bit as if we still haven't figured that out for the Clippers, even though their offense was humming at the end of the season, of the regular season at least.
They make so many shots, right? Like they have 3 guys that are advanced shot makers. Norm Powell kind of gets lost in this, but it does seem like any time they need a big shot, Norm has got to do it. He also does a good job of attacking closeouts, getting to the basket, putting pressure on the rim. I would say that this was a textbook example of what they want their offense to be. James Harden initiate, hopefully get into the pick and roll, drive, create a lane, make the pass, kick it around, and then if you have to, Kawhi is able to catch the ball on the perimeter, get a clear out in isolation. And I mean, look, the mid range is automatic for him, right? And we see this in fourth quarter after fourth quarter. When it comes time, they need a basket, they need a tough shot. Give it to Kawhi. He's going to get the shot over anybody. I mean, he had a shot over Jokic, in the fourth, and that's tough because the guy's 7'2". It just doesn't matter for Kawhi. So I think that the big key for Game 6, can James Harden keep these guys in the blender? Can Norm Powell make shots like he did? Or excuse me, for Game 7, Can Norm Powell continue to make shots? And then is everybody going to allow Kawhi to continue to be Kawhi? The Clippers, if they can just do what they did in Game 6, which is easier said than done, I mean, I think that they should be looking pretty good for Game 7. Now, the difference is Nikola Jokic is like the most clutch guy in the league. And when it comes to time to get a bucket, that's the guy I'm choosing, no matter the award. So if the game is close in Game 7 and you're playing in Denver and you've got his home crowd there, there's no chance in a close game I'm going against Jokic. So I don't know. I'm kind of pumped for this Game 7. I don't know if you can tell. I don't come to a lot of games, Zena, and I had to come to this one. Yeah.
I mean, of course. I mean, it's the best series in the entire NBA. And I don't know. I mean, you're right. I feel like Nikola Jokic is clutch, not even just in clutch 5 minutes. He's clutch, period. In the way at the end of shot clocks, et cetera, you need him. But the person I'm going to choose is the person that went 5 of 7 from the mid range tonight, including one over that 7-footer. And that's Kawhi. Kawhi's got that ability to create. So either way, as you mentioned, it's going to be an unbelievably entertaining close to an already unbelievable series. It's kind of crazy this already happened in the first round.
I know. We need it, though, Zena. We need a good 7-game series. You want to make a prediction?
I'm going Clippers.
I think the Clippers are going to do it. I think the Clippers are going to do it.
Yeah.
The Nuggets look tired down the stretch of this game.
The Nuggets played 7 people. Like that's fatigue.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think JJ Redick thinks about that?
Conditioning. Yeah. On that note, appreciate you hanging out with us, Dave DuFour, making the time to go to the arena, be in the building, and allow me to get into the pilot seat. And appreciate all of you guys listening in. Thanks to James Edward III and Dave DuFour. I'm Zena Keita. Appreciate you guys listening. Have a great weekend. More playoff basketball ahead.